Good evening. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Jamestown Public School Board to order. It is Monday, August 7th, 2023 at 5 p.m., and we're in the Thompson Community Room. Following this meeting, we're going to have kind of a work session retreat as well to work on our strategic plan. I appreciate all the board members coming on this unscheduled night for this special meeting and retreat. Since this is a special meeting, we're going to move right into our agenda. And there's a list of 7 items on the consent agenda. At any time, a board member can have one of those items removed for discussion. There does not need to be a second. Is there anything anyone would like removed from this at this time? If not, is there a motion? Motion by Gail to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second by Dan. We have a motion, a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? There being no discussion, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on under finance. Number 1, approval of agreement with Connect Teletherapy for virtual speech language therapy services. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Is there a second? Second by Gail. We have a motion and a second for approval of the agreement with Connect Teletherapy for virtual speech language therapy services. Dr. Leck, would you like to? Oh, go ahead, Aaron, first. Do you have a question first?
I didn't know if you had I was just going to say that we had discussions regarding this contract, and we are working to clarify the terms of the expectation, what is a workday, to ensure that we don't have additional liability in terms of costs, but it's something we've used this service in the past. The special ed unit has. I don't have concern with it, but I think we do need to have that clarified in black and white in terms of what that work day looks like, what are the maximum number of hours, what's the total cost, to ensure we don't have an additional liability there. And that was the discussion that was held previously. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, so this contract describes, services in terms of providing, 3 full-time equivalent at a certain rate for a number of given days. And then the termination clause that's written in here is if we choose to terminate, then we have to pay the average daily rate going forward, regardless if we use the service or not. So this contract as written really exposes the district to potentially very high costs that we wouldn't be able to mitigate or get out of in the case that something happened, something didn't work, whatever. It's just, it's really biased towards them and doesn't give the district much protection. I think there needs to be some language in here, total contract value, for example, so that the district has some controls on the cost of this contract. Because you do the math, 3 people, 40 hours a week, 175 days, $100 an hour, or 85, whatever. You're in the millions of dollars. So it's, we need to put some caps on it.
So are you suggesting something written in there like termination without cause or something like that?
Total contract value not to exceed.
Not to exceed that.
As a simple.
Or unused hours not to exceed.
And then I don't want to micromanage the
Sure.
administration of the contract.
Okay.
That's, presenting the students to the counselors and doing what we need for the district. But with the direct versus indirect support, we're not able to control that. So there's the definitions on the indirect support, so getting ready for a meeting. What does that look like? Well, it takes me 20 hours to get ready for this meeting. That it can add up, and there's just, again, there's just no protections for the district.
After that.
If I may, I sort of referenced this earlier, but in the conversations with Heidi Bedoya, the special ed director, the terms that were communicated to her, 1 FTE equates to 35 to 40 hours. So that's what you would be purchasing in this agreement. We just need that clarified. And I think if you can clarify the 35 to 40 hours is 1 FTE, I think the rest of this ends up being pretty consistent. And to me, that's what we need to be clarified, is that we're all on the same page as what we're getting. We're getting 35 to 40 hours of direct and indirect services. And we wouldn't be in an overage situation. You would be getting 35 to 40 hours.
And it's definitely a service we need for our district, so we.
Absolutely. We, this is, we're going into teletherapy because we can't find in-person individuals that, and we have had great luck with this company in the past. No concerns from the, from a programmatic standpoint or from a service standpoint, but I do understand the clarity needed from a liability standpoint. So we can work to get that clarified with them, but I don't have concern about the service.
Okay, thank you. Jason, I'm going to let Aaron finish up, and then I'll come to you. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I just need to correct my millions of dollars statement. So it does approach 300,000 for the contract if they were to maximize the services for that contract. I don't know that that's what we want to have, and I want to make sure that whatever this contract is stated, that's aligned with with the budget that we're going to be looking at.
And I think we add that one FTE language in there, that would bring that much narrower as well.
And if you look at 35 to 40 hours in this agreement, $85, because there's a discount rate for multiple, you're getting pretty consistent with the salary and benefits excluding health insurance for our most experienced speech language pathologists. So it's not completely out of line from a budgetary standpoint, but it is, again, the liability that we want to make sure we're crystal clear on that FTE expectation.
Go ahead, Jason.
Is this, and I didn't see, is this a semester contract or year?
It's the annual. It's 175 days. So instructional days, yeah.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Is the board comfortable with moving forward with approval of the contract at this point, or do you want to we have a motion to approve and a second. If there's any amended motions, or we want to move forward with the current motion. Any other discussion? Jason?
I mean, is action needed today because of the impending school year, or?
Well, we could have another special meeting, but there is a meeting set tomorrow with the service, with Heidi Badeau, to clarify and get some writing in terms of that. But I would be concerned to not have SLP services at this late in the game, but I do understand the concern.
What is the board's wishes, Dan?
If we approve this with the proviso that you'll do an amendment to the contract, that would, effectively define the FTE. It wouldn't have to come back to us. Is that? I guess that's the way I would interpret it.
We'd probably need an amended motion.
Yeah.
For that.
I think,
Well,
in my mind, I just need clarity on the 35 to 40 hours of the FTE. What equates to an FTE?
Aaron?
Yeah, actually, my concern goes beyond that. It's the indirect activity, the termination clause, and the ability for us to, as a district, again, to make sure our exposure on this service is aligned with what we have budgeted for the district. Beyond that, it's just simply an administrative, but I don't know how this maximum potential contract value compares to what we're budgeted for. And I don't know that an amendment motion can get us there, because it's the terms are, in my mind, we'd have to make sure we look at those.
Melissa, did you have a comment?
It looks to me like it's just for 175 days, because it says on here it's for 175 contract days, and then it says at the last part that if we were to decide that we didn't want to use them halfway through the year, we're still responsible for paying them the remainder of the contract period. So to me, it looks like it's just for 175. Am I not
Yep,
reading
it is
that?
175.
Yeah, you're seeing it correctly. I think the concern comes if some change occurred, we would still be responsible for the cost beyond the use on an average monthly or average weekly. It's one of the two. And what equates to, I think, if I can articulate the concern, is what equates to that time. You know, to me, again, I'm looking at it as an 8-hour day. You know, if it expands beyond that 8-hour day, you know, could you bill, 20 hours out of the 24-hour day? You know, can you go beyond 40 hours in a week? We're being billed for 80 hours for one FTE or something like that. That's that to me is the bigger concern. And if we can get clarity on what we were told, which is the 35 to 40 hour work week, I feel generally comfortable with being able to monitor the agreement. But I feel fairly comfortable with moving forward with them with that clarity.
Dan?
So is the question, Aaron, on whether that FTE would encompass both direct and indirect service?
It does.
So just making sure that FTE, you can't add FTEs for indirect stuff and thus balloon the cost of the contract. Okay.
And that's why I see the 35 to 40 is the key number, the key clarifier that we need. And I feel comfortable with movement because I know that's what they've said. We just need to have it written into, whether it's written into agreement or them clarifying to us in writing that this is what that commits to, then I think I'm comfortable either
So
way.
that clarification would essentially cap us at the $350-some thousand, the 175 times 3 times 85 times full-time equivalent, yeah.
Yep. And that's at the cap. That's the maximum. And what we have seen in the past is pretty good efficiency with this service. So at least that's what we've seen in the past. It's pretty good efficiency, pretty good use of the time. When the recommendation was made to move forward with them, again, in an expanded role, we were pretty comfortable because they have provided efficient service.
Aaron?
So what did we budget for then?
I didn't separate it out for teleconnect versus all of James River. But I can get that for you.
Is it aligned to the maximum contract value potential?
It would be very close, if not, yeah, it would be very close to that.
Yeah.
I think too, maybe to clarify what is meant by indirect services is that they have to write IEPs, there are progress monitoring, and there are things like that that just happen with every IEP. So indirect services don't usually come to many, many hours during the week, but yet they're essential hours in a speech therapist's day. I also think it looks like a very good deal based on what speech therapists are being made and the competitiveness for speech therapists, that if we were going to employ 3 here, we would be essentially investing that much into it. And we don't really have options to fulfill minutes for IEPs. It has to be done, and those minutes start very soon into that school year.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, the indirect responsibilities, I think we all understand what direct services they're working with our students. It's page 3 of the PDF, includes the beginning of the year, roles during special ed meetings, progress reporting, assessments. Those are the indirect responsibilities that they've outlined. This was added to, if you looked at this last week, this was added today when we got this information. We asked for a little more detail.
And we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Okay. There being no further discussion, let's do a roll call vote. Christy, are you ready for that? And the motion on the table is to approve the agreement with Connect Teletherapy for virtual speech language therapy services. Dr. Luck is meeting tomorrow with them, correct? Or Heidi is, Ms. Widow is. So, and the plan is to clarify the 1 FTE or get the hours, the language and the hours. Yep, go ahead, Jason.
Is this in any way impacting our search for staff?
Well, with SLPs, with this contract, it would. it would state that we are working through the course of this year with this program, because we would have we would have an assessment, throughout the rest of this year if we move on. So those positions wouldn't be searched for. I feel pretty confident in saying those would be pretty unlikely to be found anyway, but we would be making a commitment to virtual for this school year.
Dan?
Can we amend this motion so that we document our expectation of clarifying the FTE definition?
You can do that.
Okay, I move we amend the main motion to clarify that the contract will be amended to define the FTE expectations.
Okay, there's a motion, amended motion to clarify that, add to the original motion that we're going to clarify the FTE expectations and requirements. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. So now, do we vote on the original motion first or the amendment first? Amendment, okay. I want to make sure I'm doing that correctly. Okay, so now we will vote on the amended motion, which is to approve the contract that we have in our drive with original amendment first, and with the addition of the FTE. Yep, so the amended motion with the requirements to define the FTE. So is everyone clear on the motion and the second? Any discussion on that? Any discussion on the amended motion? If not, Christy, Jason, go ahead.
So we're voting now on the amendment.
On the amendment only, yes,
Okay.
to add the amendment to the motion. And then if this passes, we don't have to go back. We don't, okay. Roll call vote. Yes. Okay.
Diane Hansen. Jamie Bear. Heidi Larson.
Yes.
Jason Rohr.
Yes.
Gail Nelson. Dan Tweeten. Aaron Roberts. Melissa Gleason.
Yes.
Okay. Unanimous.
Okay. So that's approved. So now do we have to go back and vote on the original motion? On the original motion?
You're voted on the amendment.
Yeah.
So now that's the amended
Amendment,
motion
so-
that
okay,
you're voting on. So
okay.
now you have to vote.
So now we're going to re-vote on the amendment, just making sure I'm doing this correctly. And Christy will do a roll call vote for that as well.
Okay. Melissa Gleason.
Yes.
Diane Hansen. Jamie Bear. Heidi Larson.
Yes.
Jason Rohr.
Yes.
Gail Nelson. Dan Tweeten. And Aaron Roberts. Okay. Unanimous.
Yep, motion approved. Moving on, number 2, approval of the 2023 to 2024 draft preliminary budgets. The Finance Committee met briefly prior to this and had some discussions on this. Christy, do you want to make any comments, or Dr. Leck, on the budget? This is our preliminary budget. We'll have the finalized budget at the end of September.
Yeah, we have a budget hearing, our second meeting, the third Monday in September. We'll have a budget hearing, so we'll go over this in greater detail before our final is due on October 10th. From a Finance Committee, we talked about a few different areas. We think there's an opportunity to enhance investment income in our budget through looking at our ending fund balance and making some investments in CDs. So we're going to look to do that. We're going to get some feedback on that. We're going to do some work and bring it back to the Finance Committee, but we think that there's an opportunity there. We think that there's some opportunities to look at some areas of our budget. We want to do some analyzing yet and determine if there's other areas of savings that we could find to draw down our deficit. So we're looking to do a little bit of shaving from that budget, but this is the approval of a preliminary budget that is due to the county this week, in knowing that we'll still come back for a final approval. What else did I miss? I think I missed some other things. But we're just looking at different reporting that we need to have continued, but those are the two main areas that we see that could change that deficit. One, investment income, and two, looking, are there any other efficiencies we can find in our budget that ranges from supplies to, existing staff positions that are listed in our budget unlikely to be filled. You know, are there some areas that we can see some, eliminating that gap a little bit?
Aaron, go ahead. No, we did not. We're just kind of outlining the budget. So, is there a motion for number 2, approval of the 2023 to 2024 draft preliminary budgets? Motion by Aaron, is there a second? A second by Jamie. We have a motion, a second for approval of the 2023 to 2024 draft preliminary budgets. Any discussion? Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, as Dr. Luck said, we had I think, a pretty good discussion right before this meeting. I think it's the draft budget is a good baseline to work on. There are some areas of opportunity in there, I think, and it does have deficit spending in here. And I think there's some actions that we have identified that will help narrow the gap in a couple different areas. So, and that's, yeah, the plan forward here is to work the details at a much lower level and then see what we can do for those opportunities.
Yep. And we'll probably have a finance meeting again prior to the final approval of the budget. Thanks, Aaron. Dr. Leck?
I think Christie's executive summary does a good job of giving a 10,000-foot view of some of those costs, but just in a, we know from our previous conversations, we're seeing a really significant cost in our transportation contract. That is a significant portion of even right now what exists as our projected deficit. And then we had negotiations. We anticipated spending a little bit more than we were bringing in, knowing we were trying to re-stratify the negotiated agreement and the gaps between our staff. So we knew some of this was coming, and that was an investment in this year. But those are, negotiations, and the transportation contract represent a pretty significant portion of that increase in expenditure.
Any other discussion? Jason?
Before the final budget would come for approval, an executive summary or memo would, I just get a little nervous when I hear about, FTEs or, positions. Rightfully so, we should always be looking to get the most for our tax dollars, absolutely. If there are some changes to that aspect, just make sure that we're noted of that, and I assume you will. I think one of the most frustrating things for all of us here is that public education is not efficient in a lot of ways, but we need to look for streamlining, absolutely. But that was just one thing.
Dr. Leck?
Thank you for that question, because I think it's going to be really important to clarify what I meant, the context behind what I was saying. I think I oversimplified. What I was meaning is there are positions that exist in our budget and have existed in our budget in the past that have been unfilled. And are there opportunities to still keep looking for, say, an assistant elementary custodian? But we have 2 positions open, and the likelihood of finding 2 positions is unlikely. Could we list 1 position, and that on paper, we have kind of an inflated, if we have an unlikely nature to fill some of those positions, that deficit is slightly inflated. And we're just talking about trying to compress that gap a little bit, so we're still protecting ourselves in terms of being able to find the people that we need, but we're representing a budget that's a little bit more transparent in terms of what we anticipate receiving. And there would always be an opportunity if we did, say, eliminate one of those assistant custodians, and if there's anybody looking, 252-1950, we would certainly take your application. But if we did find multiples, there would always be an opportunity to come back to the board and say, hey, we found this additional position. We can, do a budget enhancement. Our intention is more to align what we expect to the reality. That's what we're looking to do. We just don't want to have as big, we want to protect ourselves without having a really inflated expenditure. So I 100% agree with you. We're not intending to completely cut positions. We just want a representative budget that's based more in what we expect.
Yeah, And there was some discussion also at the finance, you know, you have to be cognizant when we do make some of those changes, even for future boards who may not realize, you know, what that change was. But yes, Jamestown Public Schools is hiring, and so call the central office or visit the website, and there's a list of openings, and we'd be happy to take your applications. So we have a motion and a second for approval of the 2023 to 2024 draft preliminary budgets. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? If not, Christy, would you do a roll call vote for this as well?
Jamie Bear. Yes. Heidi Larson.
Yes.
Jason Rohr.
Yes.
Gail Nelson.
Yes.
Dan Tweeten.
Yes.
Aaron Roberts.
Yes.
Steve Veldkamp. Melissa Gleason.
Yes.
And Diane Hansen.
And Heidi Larson. Yes. And
Did I not
motion
say?
approved. Yep, motion approved. And like I said, we'll bring the more finalized budget toward the end of September. We'll also have the budget hearing meeting. And I also just want to express my appreciation to Christy. First time through the budget cycle and a lot going on in the business office. And so we're grateful for the lots of hours that you've put into this so far. So thank you. Moving on under personnel. Number 1, approval of the resignation of Lori Christensen. Is there a motion? Motion by Jamie. Is there a second? Second by Melissa. We have a motion, a second for approval of resignation of Lori Christensen. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, oh, Dr. Luck, go ahead.
Just a comment, it'll be coming up later in, Lori has expressed an interest in working for the first semester, so you'll see her, a prorated contract for her in second semester, or first semester coming up. And I know Mr. Heinert's already working on the second semester, but I wanted to clarify that it's just couldn't commit to a full year, so she can commit to a semester. So we're happy to have her back.
And we appreciate that. So we have a motion, a second for approval of resignation of Lori Christensen. Any other discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 2, approval of resignation for unsigned 2023 to 2024 school year contract for elementary education. Is there a motion? Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Is there a second? Second by Gail. We have a motion, a second for approval of resignations for unsigned 2023 to 2024 school year contracts for elementary education. Any discussion? Any discussion?
I just make the comment, this is in the Innovation Academy. When we ask for approvals for unsigned contracts just because of continuing contract rights, so we want to make sure the board acts on, if somebody does not sign their contract, that you're approving that they are releasing themselves from continuing contract rights. But this position is in Innovation Academy.
Any other discussion? Jason? Yep, go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, I can ask later. Sorry.
Okay. So any other discussion? So we have a motion, a second for approval of resignations for the unsigned 2023 to 2024 school year contracts for elementary education. Any other discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 3, approval to hire for the 2023 to 2024 school year upon a successful background check and appropriate licensure. Do we have to do these separately, or can we do them all together? Okay. Does the board wish to approve them all as one? I'm hearing some nods. Under one motion. So we have A, Jerry Wagon, JV-CTC, work-based learning at a prorated salary of $50,906. Lori Christensen, JV-CTC teacher at a prorated salary of $26,150 for the first semester. Scott Fritz, elementary teacher at a prorated salary of $43,468.32, not to exceed 700 hours. Brianna Mayer, English teacher at a salary of $46,000. Jordan Brown, elementary teacher at a salary of $46,000. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Melissa. So we have a motion, a second for approval to hire for the 2023 to 2024 school year upon a successful background check and appropriate licensure A through E. Any discussion? Jason?
Does this fulfill all of our elementary classrooms, or are we still in need?
I'm working on one. We had some hopes with, we thought we were fully staffed, and then item B, 1B, kind of changed that for us a little bit. So now we are still looking, but we will have an answer very soon.
Very good. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Approval to hire for the 2023 to 2024 school year upon a successful background check and appropriate licensure, A through E. There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? There being no further discussion, all those in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved, and welcome, new ones, welcome to our district, and ones that have been here, welcome back. So thank you for your service to our district. Number 4, approval of extended contracts for semester 1 of the 2023 to 2024 school year. A, Hannah Doctor. B, Larry Eslick. C, Ken Gardner. D, Anthony McIntyre. E, Shelley Moulson. F, Tim Ram.
I want to correct, if you have you have
Oh, I have
a
an older
paper
paper
copy.
copy, okay.
The Hannah Doctors
Okay.
should be Chantel Har. So
Okay.
Chantel Har, Larry Eslick, Ken Gardner,
Okay, thank
Anthony McIntyre, Shelley Moulton, Tim Ranum, and if I may, we'll have others that are coming. These are the ones that we know for certain, based on the ELA shortages. We're still doing placements into schedules and seeing what other, what else kind of fills out with the high school schedule. But these represent the extended contracts we know for certain.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is ever-changing and changed since my copy was printed. So, number 4, approval of extended contracts for semester 1 of 2023 to 2024 school year. Chantel Har, Larry Eslick, Ken Gardner, Anthony McIntyre, Shelley Moulson, and Tim Ranum. Is there a motion? Motion by Gail. Is there a second? Melissa? We have a motion and a second for approval of extended contracts for semester 1 of 2023 to 2024, A through F. Any discussion? Yes, Aaron?
So I brought this up when I was on the phone in the last meeting. Now I'm in person, I'm just going to bring it up again. With these extended contracts, the negotiated agreement defines days of contract. It doesn't define what constitutes a day. So doing these extended contracts is really working outside of that negotiated agreement. Now, with that, I fully support this because I think it's a good way to bring, merit-based type of recognition reward to people who are willing to step up and, do the extra work. But we only provide this to our high school and middle school teachers, where we have sections. We don't do anything for elementary school teachers. So we can work the heck out of an elementary school teacher, not give them an extended contract, and expect them to do basically the full 7 sections. So I think with that, I think it's on the board to come up with, and how do we need to actually define this? This isn't a documented process. This is just a best practice that's applied in some areas. And I think as a board, we should work to strive to get some definition. I don't know if it would be if there's a committee or whatever. I'm not sure the best approach on it. Because it does, the negotiated contract, there's no terms that define this, and it's really, I think it's a good benefit for the teachers, and that work-life balance is very important. But we don't define how, why, we do this. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I think this is something we should look at.
Just want to make a comment to that. When we go into our work session, which is coming up next, one of the areas that we've defined is to consider equity in terms of this particular practice and equity of schedules and working to define what that equates to. That was one of the conversations that was held in negotiations, and it's something that I think needs to find its way into our strategic plan, at least operationally, for this upcoming year. So I think it's something that we need to look at and define and determine at what place inequity, or if there is inequity, number one, at where it exists, and then how to address it. Are you looking at it as redefining what that workday equates to, so you can be as consistent as possible at all of the levels, knowing that all the levels and positions are different. But I think it first comes down to looking at what is expected, and being consistent with what's expected. Then, okay, if you understand that, now what does extended equate to? What is that? And how are you going to apply that? So are you looking at Yeah, I mean, just how you're looking at schedules, I think there's ways that we can do that. But I think we need to first do that, define what is that, at what levels that occurs at, and what should be expected in a workday at every level, how is that consistent as possible, and then examine what equity, what that extended contract means. So we can apply it, at any level. But I think it first starts with that workday expectation.
Any other discussion? Okay. We have a motion, a second for approval of extended contracts for semester 1 of 2023 to 2024 school year, A through F. Any other discussion? There be no further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving on to policy, number 1, approval of amended policies. And highlighted in yellow are the amended changes. A, policy FFD, possessing weapons. B, policy FFK, suspension and expulsion. C, policy KAAA, visitors in schools. Is there a motion? And your motion can include all the policies if you'd like it that way.
I move to approve all 3 policies.
Motion by Aaron to approve all 3 policies. Second by Dan. We have a motion, a second for approval of the amended policies FED, FFK, KAAA. Any discussion? Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. E, other. Approval of the 2023 to 2024 agreement for policy services through the North Dakota School Boards Association. This is something we have done in the past. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve. Is there a second? Second. Second by Jason. We have a motion and a second for approval of the 2023 to 2024 agreement for policy services through the North Dakota School Board Association. Any discussion? Any discussion? There being no discussion, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. There being no further business before this special meeting, this meeting is adjourned. Note that we will have our work session retreat on our strategic planning following this meeting. We're going to stay right in here and do that. Thank you.